Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're taking a look at 2005's King Kong, directed by Peter Jackson. You know the one. So why am I reviewing this right now? Well, because I'm in preparation to see Godzilla King of the Monsters, which comes out to digital on August 13th. Have not seen it yet. Kind of excited, kind of cautious. Who knows what's going to happen? But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch all the Godzilla and King Kong movies that I can get my hands on, at least made domestically, and see where that leads me. Yesterday, I saw the 1998 Godzilla movie. Today, I watched King Kong by Peter Jackson. I think for the most part, I really enjoy this movie. I think it's a movie that a lot of people overlook or underrate because they're really intimidated by the runtime of 3 hours and 7 minutes, and I get it. Because whenever I run into a movie that's 3 hours plus, I get a little bit intimidated myself. I get a little bit cautious. That's a really scary number. A lot of movies that are 3 hours long are boring and they aren't paced very well, and they just feel like they drag on forever and you feel like you just grew a beard while watching it. The nice thing is that this movie is directed by Peter Jackson, who has a way of making his movies feel shorter than they actually are. I'm not going to sit here and say that you don't feel the runtime of this movie. Do you feel the runtime? Of course you do. It's 3 hours long. However, it does feel shorter than it is. It doesn't exactly feel like 3 hours, and that's what's key. Because I have seen movies. Actually, recently, I have seen a movie that was 100 minutes shorter than King Kong. 87 minutes long. That's it. 87 minutes. And it felt longer than King Kong. That's where pacing comes in. It's really important to know where your characters are going and to clue the audience in as well. As long as you do that, the movie can feel shorter than it actually is. Apart from that, you have to realize that this movie is almost 15 years old, so there are some things that don't work as well as they used to in 2005. Honestly, I think this movie works for the better. There's a lot of things that it does do right, but there's also a lot of stuff that it could definitely use a tune-up, and most of those bad things in this movie have to do with the fact that it is almost 15 years old and it doesn't work as well as it used to. So let's get into the good. So the best thing about this movie is the visuals, and I'm not even talking about the CGI. Even though the CGI is highly detailed, it's very good, especially for its own age right now. But I'm talking about everything else when it comes down to visuals. When I rate visuals for any given movie, I look more than at visual effects. I look at practical effects, costume design, makeup, hair, lighting, color, production design. Because if a movie doesn't have any CGI at all, I'm not going to give visuals a crappy score. I'm going to give it a perfect score if it has amazing use of lighting and colors, for instance. King Kong does something really interesting. There's so much focus on CGI that you might not recognize everything else that's going on in the background, like amazing production design, makeup, hair, and costumes. Because apart from trying to sell you on the idea that there's this giant gorilla on this unknown Skull Island, it's also trying to sell the idea that this is taking place decades and decades ago. The focus it has specifically on production design, costume, hair, and makeup help it really sell the fact that this did take place years and years ago. Obviously, the CGI will make it feel like it's a production, so you won't ever really truly believe that it took place in the 20s or 30s. But did it really need to focus on things like that? No, because obviously a lot of movies just focus on CGI and they do just fine. But because it does focus on all these great things when it comes down to visuals, when the CGI turns out to look like crap in the future, the other stuff will remain the same and you will be able to appreciate everything that went into it, and it will still look pretty good for what it is. The only problem that I actually had with the visuals came down to green screen work and superimposing live action people onto completely CGI backgrounds. They're quickly shot, they're quickly edited, blink and you'll miss them, but if you do see them, your subconscious will pick up on the fact that something doesn't look right there, and I could definitely tell that if it was made today, that it would have been tuned up to the degree where you wouldn't really notice it. It's really a small complaint. Obviously, it has to do with the fact that it was made almost 15 years ago, so you can only do so much. What I also liked about this movie is they tried their best to diversify the cast of characters, even though they didn't really need to. All they really needed to do is focus on King Kong, to be honest with you. But because they focused on the director, the producer, the actor, the actress, the screenwriter, and then King Kong, it really helped make it feel more unique than it needed to feel, which is definitely a positive. The acting is kind of weird. At times it was really good. At other times it felt cheesy and over the top. depending on who was talking. Chemistry is kind of where this movie is all about. It's all about the chemistry between King Kong and the woman. And that's always kind of how it's been, but they did a really, really good job in this movie specifically selling that chemistry, selling that relationship that they have. The main negative when it comes down to this movie is the narrative. There seems to be two main narratives going on, and that's not usual. Basically, there's two narratives in this film that affect absolutely everybody, and that's not common. So it makes it feel like there's two movies happening at the same time, where the stuff on the island is one movie, the stuff on New York is another, and it's just one big kind of film that could have been split into two. That's where the pacing kind of fell flat for me. It did make me feel like there's two separate endings. It did make me feel like there's two separate inciting incidences, and it made me feel like this was a little bit silly. It should have been two movies, but I get it. It is a remake of a movie done a long, long time ago, and they needed to include everything, and when they did that, it was more paying tribute to the past than it really was doing anything else. It really needed the New York sequences, but it also needed a lot of the fight sequences in the island to show King Kong's humanity. I get it. I get where Peter Jackson was coming from. I understand why he did what he did, but I'm sure there were things here and there that they could have cut down if they wanted to. Woo! In general, I would say that this movie is definitely worth a watch. It's not as good as I think it used to be. My score actually went down from 87% to 82%, which isn't a hugely terrible difference, but it is a difference that changes a score of 9 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. It's still a movie that I would recommend to others to watch because there's a lot of stuff in it that I really love. But at the same time, do you really need to see it? Is it something that I need you to watch so I can talk to you about? No. I don't know. Take that as you will. 82%. Guys, tell me what you thought about King Kong in the comments down below. As for YouTube, you know what you can do. You can subscribe to me. You can like it. You can hit the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. But until then, I don't know. Peace out.